Hello everyone and welcome to another Fish Talk video. As you know, we're all isolated at the moment. We can't go and do much fishing, but today I thought I might try and make some of my beef jerky, which comes up very well indeed and is pretty well fail safe as long as you just follow a few simple instructions. Now, this recipe works really well if you happen to be a duck shooter. Works very well with wild duck fillets as well. So I'll just run through a few of the ingredients. And underneath this video I'll put the instructions on how to come up with this thing. So anyway, what you need is some beef. This is a cold sizzle steak, and this is the one we tend to use because it's cut nice and thinly. We need about 4 trays of this stuff, 400 grams per tray, so it's about 1.6 kilos. Of course you'll need a measuring jug. We need some soy sauce. We use Kikkoman soy sauce. We find it's probably the best of the lot. You'll also need some hoisin sauce, about 125 mils of that, 400 mils of the soy sauce, by the way. We put a splash of apple cider vinegar in there. It doesn't affect the taste at all, but apparently it's very good for getting rid of any bacteria that might be in the meat, so we use that. Also a splash of Worcestershire sauce, and then to give it a bit of kick we use some chili flakes, just 2 teaspoons of chili flakes and 2 teaspoons of cayenne pepper. Now you might be thinking 2 teaspoons, 1.6 kilos of meat, that's not going to be much kick. Believe me, it is plenty of kick. I wouldn't go any higher than that initially if I was you. And then maybe if you make it and you like it, you might want to up the ante a little bit later on. The other thing is that if you've got some steak or some older steak left over, which I've got here, it's got dog written on it, means it's been into the freezer for a long time. So I'm going to be dehydrating some meat for the dog, and it makes really great little doggy treats. And this doggy treat, we'll just lab test it for you. Sit down, Harley. Good boy. As you can see, absolutely approved by the lab. Well done. Okay folks, so that's it. Basically what we need to do, we'll be cutting up the sizzle steak into strips around about 3/4 of an inch wide. And then eventually, once we mix up all our ingredients, we'll be putting them into a Ziploc bag overnight, and we'll do the dehydrating in the morning. So the first ingredient we need to get is around about 400 ml of soy sauce, and that sort of helps to give it that bit of a kick that you need. Next ingredient is hoisin sauce. Now we add about 125 ml of that to the 400 ml of soy sauce. Soy sauce and the hoisin sauce are the main ingredients. Between them they're around about half a litre, I suppose. And straight into a bigger bowl, and then we'll get the other things in there, and then we'll move on to the meat. As I said earlier, a little splash of apple cider vinegar. You don't need a great deal, just probably a teaspoon or something like that. As I said before, apparently it gets rid of the bacteria in the meat, and as we'll be leaving this overnight for probably about 12 hours before we start to dehydrate, that gives it a chance to go through the meat very well. Just like the apple cider vinegar, just a small splash of Worcestershire, just gives it that little bit of extra touch. Doesn't need a lot. Now to the bits that actually give the jerky its kick. Chili flakes. They actually give it a good look too. It's nice to see a few chili flakes on the meat, so we need 2 teaspoons of those. 1 and 2. And then this is the one that really gives it the kick. Cayenne pepper. Now this is extra hot ground, Master Foods. You can get that at any supermarket. Not very expensive, and you only need 2 teaspoons. I warn you again, don't go any more than 2 teaspoons initially. When it comes out of the dehydrator, you think to yourself, oh, it's not that hot, it's okay. But what happens is, once it's been in a container in the fridge for a day or two, all of a sudden the heat starts to kick in. So 2 only, about 1.5 kilo of meat. And what's going to help it out is that you're going to be putting all this with your meat in the fridge overnight. So it's going to sit there for probably close to 12 hours actually, and that helps it to go through the meat and to infuse and everything. Okay, only thing left to do now is that I'll be opening up the sizzle steak. I'll be cutting it into lengthwise strips of around about 3/4 of an inch wide. And then everything will be going in together, and then it'll go into the fridge. Okay, when you're preparing the meat, we just want to, because this is why this sizzle steak is so good, as you can see, that's cut beautifully fine. Usually it's a nice looking steak with very little gristle in it, so it's already prepared and ready to go. You could probably go to your local butcher. I've done that before, just gone to the local butcher and they've prepared some steak for me, cut finely like that. But this always comes out pretty well. So actually all we need to do now is cut pieces around about that wide. Straight down, like so. That's probably okay like that. So you're going to get about 4 widths out of each piece. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces in each lot. So 6 fours, 24 of these slices you're going to get. Price wise, sizzle steak used to be $9 a pack. This lot we got from Coles on Friday night, just gone, and it had gone up to $10 a pack. So you're looking at about $40 worth of meat here, but depending on how quickly you go through it, you end up with a lot of jerky. And it lasts so well into the fridge because that's what the dehydrator's for. We've now sliced up all our sizzle steak into little thin strips like that. That's the result of 4 packs there of the Coles sizzle steak. So basically now all it's got to go is go into the bowl with all of the marinade, and then I'll be transferring all this into a Ziploc bag, and it will sit in the fridge overnight. And then tomorrow, around about lunchtime, we'll get the dehydrator up and running. So there's all our ingredients into a Ziploc bag. I've expelled as much air as possible out of that, and then I'm just going to sit that back in the bowl, like that, and the whole thing's going to go into the fridge. Okay, you can then turn it every hour or two so that the stuff infuses through better. So everything into the fridge, and then in the morning we will go through the dehydration process. So it's about 18 hours later. This has been in the fridge overnight. That's the meat that I've cut up for the dog that was in the freezer for a long time. So I now need to drain this, put it on the racks, and start dehydrating it, and the job will be done. And the dog is really looking forward to his bit, aren't you, mate? So drain the meat out, just get rid of all the excess fluid. That way it will dry out a little bit quicker, and it's really had enough time to get all the goodies through it by now. Rack up your beef on your dehydrator racks. Make sure you've got a little bit of room between the pieces so that it can dry properly, and we'll soon have this underway. Okay, this is the last tray, ready to go into the dehydrator. All dehydrators aren't exactly the same. This one's a Sunbeam, and it's set up like so. So I've got 6 trays of meat there. The top tray is for the dog, the rest is for us, and we just set the timer. It defaults to 10 hours, so you've got to bring that down. So I'm going to go at about 5.5 hours, sorry. Temperature defaults to 70, and that's where you want it to be. Okay, so cover goes on there. And in 5.5 hours we'll see what the result is. So the lab's ready to test, aren't you, lab? Just got a few more minutes to go. Well, 5.5 hours in the dehydrator, and this is part of the result. Got 5 trays of jerky, and I'm just going to weigh them and see just how much they've gone down. I had around about 1.6 kilos of meat to start with. Just want to see how much moisture has been taken out of them. So this is the end result. 1.6 kilos of meat has come down to 758 grams. So it's nearly half. In fact, it's more than half. More than half of the weight has gone from the dehydration process. So given that you pay around about $10 per 100 grams for beef jerky when you buy it in the shops, this whole lot thing would come to around about $42, I suppose. So it works out fairly cheap, and believe me, it tastes so much better. So once the process is finished, put all your jerky into a airtight container. If you sit it in the fridge, I'll guarantee you'll have it eaten before it goes off. Thanks for watching this video. If you like what you saw, why not consider giving it a thumbs up and maybe hit the subscribe button, and we'll catch you again in our next video.